You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Gentle listeners, you're listening to The Adventuring Party. Welcome. This evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this, we're going to be talking about a topic that's a follow-on from a previous episode, and I'm going to hand this over to
Warlord Scarr.
Yep.
And then I'm going to hand it off to... Oh, it's a relay race now. Yes, it is I, still Savage. Just for clarity. I'm not like it isn't still Savage. I'm Savage. I'm currently and have continued to be Savage. But that doesn't really matter because who I need to hand it over to now is...
It's me, Owen. How you doing, everybody? Now, and I am here
I have so many things
to
I want to
tell
say.
you about a great truth. And really, that truth is that the base building episode we discussed previously drew some interest. And I got contacted by several loyal listeners who asked us but why didn't you talk about this game that includes base building rules? Or other aspects that use base building rules? And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. And what I'm coming around to the point here is QAnon has got some good points about some things. Or more accurately, I'd like to go back to the 90s. The 90s. A more innocent time when you could watch a show called X-Files and that was okay. It was all just a bit of fun. And more importantly, you could then go play a game called Conspiracy X. Yeah. And Conspiracy X presupposed that basically the three classic conspiracy theory elements, the Greys, the Atlanteans, and the Men in Black, were all a real thing.
And not thinly disguised, anyway.
Only one of them is thinly disguised anti-Semitism. The grey alien is xenophobia at worst, and just weirdness. Bored rural people at its most.
What if we were the colonized?
Absolutely, yeah, that's the way. So, Saurians, that was the third one. Saurians were the third.
Yes, I was wondering when the lizard men had come up. All hail the Queen of England.
So, Conspiracy X was that game where you were playing members of typically the US government, but you could play it anywhere. And they had pooled their resources to fight these invaders from behind the scenes. And it's a cool, very 90s RPG. The biggest selling point of it was that after you built your character, there was a second phase where you built your base. And one of the advantages you could purchase for your character was your influence. And your influence was basically boiled down to how likely are you to be able to get the part of the US government you actually work for, be it NASA, be it the CDC, be it the FBI, be it the ATF. How important you were in that thing. How could you pull strings to get stuff to happen there? And from that value, that influence value, you then calculated your resource points. And resource points were spent to equip your group with facilities, with weapons, with equipment, with everything you needed to take on this mystery threat. And as a result, there's a lot of juice in Con X about going through, okay. Everyone pull in your resource points. Tell me how many you got. Okay, now we spend them. And we have restrictions on who can buy what. So, yeah, that's where it starts. Now, Xaosseed, I believe you have run Conspiracy X as well.
No, I've played Con X. But I remember exactly that kind of the guy from the DEA had like a whole bunch of influence. So like we had all of the Tech 9s and deniable cars that we wanted, but we some other stuff we could only get from the guy who was with the NSA type thing. So yeah, fond memories of it.
Absolutely. And like one of the first things you bought your location, because you're buying a base, location. And your options were underground, which is very good for security, a military base, which makes it very hard for certain people to attack, but you might get some spot inspections. You could be in a marine research vessel, so your base is mobile. You could be in an industrial park, so there's tons of room and tons of power and everything like that. You could just be at a private estate. You could have Stately Wayne Manor. You could just be in a warehouse. That was cheap. You could be in an office building. That was cheap. You could be in a bomb shelter. That's really cheap. It's secure, but it's a bit cramped. And then you started adding on facilities like barracks, a biohazard suite, computer facilities, with all the fantastic high-tech computers 1996 had to offer. And
that's a lot of IMAX.
Absolutely. But you got to build this thing point by point, basically, and arguing with your player group about what you're going to spend the money on. You spend your resource points on. Oh no, we're going to need a medical facility. People are going to get hurt. We need an alien containment facility to basically stick aliens in. We need training facilities so we can practice our small arms fire and auto fire skills. And it's really quite comprehensive, And you build your facility, and then you're like, okay, we need pistols. All right, we spend a resource point. We get a crate of 5 pistols and a box of ammo with 100 clips in it. It's really quite detailed. It's really quite fun. And I got a tremendous buy-in from players building the base. And the building the base was, I would think, at least as much fun as building a character, and probably a bit more fun than building a character.
100%. It's like one of the best session zeros you can have in gaming.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things where it's a cool activity that you have as a team, but it is also very much a sort of session zero type setup. And if you're unfortunately saddled with the kind of player base who you can't have a session zero because you're only going to have like 3 of the 7 players show up on a given session, then that sort of team building exercise is probably a lot more difficult to arrange.
I think so.
Why do you have to be that way? Like, just assume everyone shows up because they said they're going to play the game and they do the thing. And 7? Good lord, what are we? We're on a Xaosseed game here. Xaosseed. How many people? What's the biggest player count you have at the moment?
I think I had 7 at a recent game. Yeah.
Get out. But you've been running another game that has base building in it, haven't you?
Yeah. So I've a much less detailed version of this, but there's a game out there called Brancolonia, which is basically a 5e mod. It is what they call a spaghetti fantasy setting that I've been using. That is among the things that you can do. Like it's great for drop-in, drop-out open table games because it is like you are a band of rogues and knaves and you've got your den. And it's great for open table games and like whoever's available because you can just say, yeah, the boss like just does a scrub around the den, like rounds up whoever's available to do a gig. That like whoever he lays his eyes on, grabs them all by the ears, chucks them out and goes like, go do this thing. But you've got your den. And you can dump money into it. Like one of the cool things about Brancolonia is it runs with the 5e gritty realism bit. So a short rest is a night, and a long rest is a week. So if you actually get into a fight, like that's it's going to take a while, but it does mean that if you lose any hit points as well, you want to get your long rest, you're going to be downtime for a week. It means the downtime is significant time. So it lends towards actually like being in your base and doing stuff around that. Mechanically, though, you can dump money into upgrading your den with what they call grand luxuries, which include a black market, a distillery, a forge, a stable, a cantina, different things like this. And these give you access to other bits and pieces. Another aspect of Brancolonia is a bit like old school Dark Sun. Everything you start with is junk. So on a roll of a natural one, whatever it is you've got breaks. your sword, your climbing gear, your thieves' tools, your armor, whatever. And by investing in a forge, then you get to pick 2 of your things you get to pick a number of things equivalent to your level that aren't junk because you use the forge to fix them ahead of whatever you're up to today. So it's a nice little one of and boy howdy, the players pay attention to this. They're like, hey, we're setting off to do the thing. Okay, what am I fixing? My thieves' tools and this, my sword. And like they're very much keeping track of it, which is fun. Oddly, none of them have thought to like further upgrade the forge to get more stuff, but okay. We'll see how we...
And it's not long-term thinkers.
Yep.
And so it has a strong sense of base.
Yep.
Cool.
And it works this despite the open table. Like, you never get a situation where someone comes in for one session, dumps 5,000 gold on some obscure thing.
No. Hilariously, well, no, actually, what has been happening, which has been like exceedingly funny, has been there's been a couple of players in the group who have projects that they want to put money into. Like the guy who actually has the forge as this is the thing I want to do. Currently, he's got a project. So there's a couple of the players who have got like things they want to do and are looking for cash, and there's other players who are out there who are just stumbling over cash, doing bits and pieces, and call it back to the lair, and they're like, what the hell are we going to do with this stuff? It's like, well, we could give it to him, we could do that. Very interestingly for the table, there's a very strong tendency among that group of to bankroll each other's bad ideas, particularly for people who are not present at the table at the moment. Like it's looking strongly likely they're going to fund someone else's campaign to get voted the mayor of a different city, despite that player not having been around to hear this. So they may actually, the next game, they're going to be like, yeah, you got elected. It's like, I did what now? Yeah, everyone else ponied up. You got elected.
Here's a slash.
Yeah. I mean, so that has not proved to be an issue at all.
Scarr, you have had a recent enough campaign where you had a lot of base building by different factions. How did you facilitate that?
That was more, sort of faction based. Is that I had a whole bunch of NPC red teams in a game, and they were like building up resources, but they would tend to be more what I call project focused. So I do recall one faction spent 3 game sessions just building up an arsenal of firebombs to delete another faction. And I was like, who's going to get there first? Who's going to wipe out the player characters, or is just this? And the players got there to the island just in time to see half the island just get engulfed in flames, and they're going, "What's going over there?" We probably can't get close enough to check, so we'll have a look at the ashes afterwards.
Okay.
Actually, no. I think they were in that section. They got out like 10 minutes before the bombing started. Now I remember it.
So this brings me to my first question for this episode about, and we are kind of following on from previous, but I think it's kind of should be obvious to you, the gentle listener, by now that we're talking about mechanically sort of supporting bases and base creation in systems, and how it works and when it works and why it works. But it seems to me that there's a slightly sort of nebulous idea about what a base is. Is it an actual place you go and maybe even defend? Is it a means to gather resources? Or is it something that allows you to start and advance projects? And I suspect the answer is it's all 3. At least, hopefully. Let's just circle back now. Owen, Conspiracy X. Do you ever recall? I mean, did you play it much yourself? Did you run it?
I ran a bit of Conspiracy X. I didn't run a huge amount of it. We had a lot of fun with the base building, and we got a bit out of the actual gameplay. So one of the things we had was in Conspiracy X, there was no limit on flaws you could take in the first edition of the book. So you could take any number of flaws you wanted. So characters built out of 100 points. My brother in it had a character with 300 points of flaws. So he was a 400-point character. One of his flaws was split personality, which created a second character
With their own pool of flaws?
with their own pool of flaws. So he also had a 300-point character, effectively a character with another like 200 points worth of flaws as one of his sub-personalities.
At least it's not just you. Like,
It's
it's
not just-
genetic, clearly.
So his main character was the deputy director of NASA because he had so many points. And his sub-character was an insane pyromancer assassin. So in moments of stress, his personality had a chance of breaking, and he switched over to the pyromancer.
to Dr. Firebomb.
This game was the first time I vetoed a character. It was not that character. I was okay with that character. The character I vetoed was one guy's pitch was, "Can I play the Terminator?" And I was like,
Okay.
"What do you mean play the Terminator?" And we got into what meant play the Terminator. I said, "No, you're not allowed to play the Terminator."
That's just the Terminator.
Yeah.
So presumably all these extra points were put into an amazing base.
Yeah, they really were. It was quite an impressive base. They had an Aurora, which was an alien space, basically an alien hybrid spacecraft. Like basically, this is what flies at Area 51. They have 30 pages of this 230-page paperback book, the core rule book. There were 30 pages of rules for selecting stuff for your base.
Yeah,
which
it is.
just
It's quite
dense. It's just dense lists of options. And there's a lot of good options in it. Hey, do you guys want a telemetry robot to go defuse bombs for you? You can get that. Hey, do you want some flak vests? You can get that. Do you want an Apache assault helicopter to shoot up a building with? You can get that.
Do you know, the thing that I remember reading that and be like, and as someone who was about the same time reading Tom Clancy novels, I'm like, I know where those lists came from. I know exactly where all that gear came from. It was like those books, and there was another guy who also wrote similar kind of techno thrillers, and it was just like, yeah, I want to buy the things. We're going to solve this problem with a B2. Yes.
Yeah. It was something else. It was something else. I am as well. I mean, other ones that come up with good base building rules. The Blades of the Dark do kind of a tech tree with their hideouts, where basically you kind of build out, you improve your stuff to get things. A great one, which I had a lot of fun with as well, was Starship Construction Rogue Trader from FFG.
Where because you'd have your ship was this gigantic cathedral in space, and you the part of equipping it also sort of gave it a history. As it's like, this has got Xenotech engines, and it was abandoned in a buried deep in an asteroid somewhere, and it's just like, just the random histories and random components you would find would just add up to all kinds of interesting things about this this city in space.
Absolutely. And they had so the game code a lot of mechanical support to it. You base your war into trade, you got a certain number of ship points, you bought a hull with those ship points, and that came with a certain amount of space, and you then started filling up with components. And you picked your drive, your warp engine, your Geller field. You want the best Geller field you can get. You see that warp plane ball, you get one of those. I don't care.
You can get so many demons in this baby. Slaps the roof. Those who know me will know that I quite like the inventory game. I quite like trying to figure out how to fit stuff in the backpack. And for me, base building is sort of that writ large, especially when you're given a template that said you've got to fit whatever you want to have in your base inside this box. And then sort of arrange it. I have to ask, Conspiracy-X, did it come first, or did the XCOM video game by James Gallup?
I think
which came first.
UFO Enemy Unknown, which is what that would be called.
The original,
before it was XCOM, was 94. And Connex, I believe, was probably these are both children of X-Files in a lot of ways. New Millennium Entertainment put out Conspiracy-X in 96. But it would have been probably.
Oh, and I mean, how can you confirm that date? Would you have any sort of evidence to that?
I am looking here at my hard copy of Conspiracy-X, well loved, a little bit dog-eared in some places because it's soft cover, black and white paperback from 1996. which I purchased in the Virgin Megastore for the princely sum of 21 punts 99 pence from back in the day.
Nice.
And that was a game I have a lot of fondness for. Later editions of it have kind of never kind of realized the madness, as tamped down a lot of the berserkness of the original game, but it hasn't quite fully realized the madness. And that was yeah, love it.
So the Virgin Megastore, for those who are wondering what on earth a Virgin or a Megastore are, yeah, a bit of a mecca for gaming at that time.
Yeah.
It was quite it's the base where we all belonged.
Yeah, it's just a super value now.
Yeah,
it's a rather nice super value, but it was an edifice to entertainment, and on the first floor was certainly where all the gaming stuff was found. And they sold everything. It was war games, card games,
condoms,
graphic
notably.
novels. It was one of the first places in Ireland to sell condoms because they were different times.
Absolutely.
In so many different ways.
So when some young men and women went up there, they were upstairs and snuck their way up to the counter. They were not purchasing contraceptives. They were instead purchasing RPG books.
Which carried about the same level of stigma
Back in the day.
time.
Back in the
time. Okay. So, yes, we touched on it briefly. Almost any game where you get a ship, be it a ship of the sea or ship of the stars, is a kind of default a base building game as well. Because what is a ship if not configurable? But we'll kind of stay away from that for now. Now, I have to point out, but Dungeons and Dragons, we've had the strongholds, we've had the keeping the borderlands, we've all that in the past. I think it had a pretty strong, probably its strongest iteration of base in the current milieu was in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which I know I've gone on about before, but most people here would probably recognize Troll Skull Manor as a sort of which I think is going to be a strong touchstone for a generation of gamers, because it is a base you're given at the start of that adventure, and you can do almost anything you like with it, but it's got a layout, it's got a sort of fixed or defined kind of area, and it is in a particular place. And while the chapter that features it and running it is rather short, it gives just enough subsystems that you could spend an awful lot of time just having fun running a fantasy tavern. And dealing with all the sort of ne'er-do-wells that come through it. I personally made use of it, inspired by XCOM, by having it be invaded by some of the factions that make up the antagonists of the rest of that campaign. And oh man, I mean, you can fight for king, you can fight for country, you can fight for cause, but you'll fight like hell for your home turf when the heavies start knocking in doors and throwing firebombs. The players just got so much out of it, and they were like, this was it, stand your ground, man in his castle doctrine. And it's great to see it. I think that's one of the strong things about bases in any RPG is, like, here's the trick, make them fight for it. At least once in the campaign, make them fight for it, because then they'll cherish it, then they'll love it.
Yeah. But have you ever heard tells the stories of people who got it, like, whatever, 5-10 sessions in, if they were really, really slow at the first section of the adventure, and then some of the party just kind of zoned out about it, and there would be like one or two people running the whole manor, and then if they weren't there that session, then the session was no longer about the manor, whatever, the other.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's not going to. I mean, playing house isn't going to interest everybody, but yeah.
That is one of the things that we brought up in the previous episode, is that part of the issue with starting to build a base halfway through a campaign is that if someone is become really invested in the freedom of the early game of your campaign, and then all of a sudden you bring this.
Why is it all of a sudden? Why isn't this signposted well in advance?
Yeah, well, that's part of my point. Is okay. Like, if you want a base build game, you either have it be at the start a character creation like we have with Con X, or you signpost that the plan of this campaign is to eventually get a base. And that kind of signposting is a GM skill I don't think is emphasized enough. Is that people tend to, a lot of people feel that they need to have the twists of their campaign as a complete secret to maximize surprise, but anticipation is better than surprise in a lot of ways, and you might very well get a better result from telling someone they're going to get a base and then have them going, "Oh, I wonder what it's going to be. My base is going to be like." Than you are, having them turn into these rugged individualists over 5 sessions or 50 sessions, and then all of a sudden, wait, now we have to babysit this old dilapidated manor. We have to fix it up. We have to invest in it. That's crap.
Well,
Yeah.
ish. Like if there's only story, only like flavor benefit to it, that's going to play to a particular slice of the table. Like people who care about, yes, we're restoring the ducal palace that we got the piece of paper of from the king for the reward for the last mission. That's okay. That's a thing. But I think what's interesting with, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hida, of the Con-X stuff, like that base was mechanically necessary. You needed to cycle back to your base for refuel and replenishment. Like your resource points were tied up with that.
Oh yeah, that was where your stuff was.
Yeah, exactly. So like it was not just like you needed to keep it in order to continue to operate. Like Trollskull Manor, if people got turfed off Trollskull Manor, like they missed it, but they could still function. Whereas
Very
the
true.
kind of the bases in Brancalonia, there's like distinct mechanical bonuses to it.
Yeah.
And
that is an important distinction. Yeah, these bases almost shape the game you're playing.
Yeah, and there's like another one which I mean I've seen where trying to do that of like how do you make, or like very explicitly designed with the goal of how do you make current era D&D players like care about the bases. What's it? Matt Colville and his outfit MCDM. They went with strongholds and followers. They like basically gave massively overpowered bases that like if you have one, then you can like take these stronghold actions. Things like once per long rest, within enemies within 30 feet of you do a Constitution save or suffer the effects of a contagion spell. Like really kick-ass effects that as long as you maintain control of that stronghold, you end up with like these powers, which is again another way of like, okay, now the base is mechanically worth something to you. Like Brancalonia is like your base helps you claw your way back up from like really junk gear to okay, and Strongholds and Followers is the like these are the like epic orbital death laser type stuff that people will want because they're really powerful. But I think it's important, like, to engage people, you need to have a chunk of crunch, and Con-X builds it in at the start, which is why then
the question that I, as a previous viewer of Matt Pull's stuff and his Twitch channel, like one of the big questions he kept getting asked whenever he brought up the idea was, okay, that's nice that I've got a castle, but what do I get out of it? Like, people did not appreciate, because we don't live in this. We live in a very propertyless society these days, where property is something that only wealthy assholes have, and people don't see, well, like, what am I getting out of owning this thing? As just a deed, it's just a piece of paper. So having the mechanical weight put onto it might seem like power for power's sake, but it creates the level of investment and consideration of, like, which of these castles do I want? Do I want to make the Warlock's castle, or the or the do you want a big army, or do you want to be able to talk to the demon lords, or summon angels or whatever?
I think one could argue that it's also a feature of your like in-game ambient background level of safety has gone up a lot. Like you can be pretty sure you can go sit in your tavern, like get drunk as hell, carouse, and the DM's not going to go like, oh well, you went carousing down the wrong alley. Roll me that d6, 1 and 6, you're going to get knifed, and that's it, new character.
Yeah.
Like people don't feel the need to invest in a secure base because, like, it's pretty safe out there.
Okay, I'm going to ask you all to put on your GM hats now. Give me a good idea how to use a base in the game. Give me something, like, it can be, let's not write any novels here, but hit me with something interesting to do with the base to bring it into the forefront. Let's start with Owen. You've got Conspiracy X open in front of you. Go.
I do. I would have a basically mobile base, like a ship, that is currently immobilized and under a threat from something mysterious, which you give the thing. I would consider the haunted base.
That's a good one.
Where something weird is happening and you need to deal with it.
Yeah, and it's not like you can escape from it. That's where you keep your stuff. That's where you eat your meals. That's where you sleep. Scarr.
Ooh. Fortunately, a lot of all my thinking these days have been for mega dungeons. Actually, there's one. This is like you could set your game in a section where like your town has recently been liberated from the Doom Castle that's been built above it, and you were the people going into the Doom Castle to reclaim all the wealth of your civilization and using it to reinvesting it back into the city around. So
okay.
So, you're not just a bunch of murder hobos. You're trying to basically rebuild your civilization by, clawing the wealth back from the pit full of monsters in which the evil lord invested.
And what you clear, you keep.
And of course, because you're the one bringing the treasure back, you get to decide which factions in your town get the benefits.
Very good. Man, you can have a whole campaign around that. Xaosseed. Hit me.
Yeah. So the thing I like about base, base is nice, but also base comes with a few things that are use or lose. So like as long as let's say low level party gets their hand on a base. I've done this one a few times. You might recognize bits of it. Is low level party gets their hands on a base. It comes with, say, a cavalry division who's already there. Like, so with the base, you also have a big sort of get things done stick, but you don't really have a way to replace them. If you put them up against something that's too nasty, like it'll probably make a dent, but that's it. You've lost it. But like maintaining the base coming with a few toys that lets you bootstrap a relatively low level party into being able to go after some mid to high tier problems, or at least think about it. Makes the base a tool, a thing that gives them a big sort of like agency reach, but also like has that slight restriction and interesting piece around like, okay, where do we want to play these chips? It's not like it's us, the party, that can do it, that we just need a long rest and we're back up. It's like we've got like 1 or 2 cool toys hanging around a base. Like we got 3 nukes down there. What 3 things are we going to chuck those nukes at? Because once we use them, they're gone. Do we ever want to use them? Do we just want to chuck 1 and keep 2 as threats? What do we want to do? So I think like the base having a few toys that offer the players agency to do things that they can't do is a nice wrinkle that like sort of gets people access to like later stages of the game, higher tiers of challenge, but not in a trivial, in a way that like, they have to choose what they're going to spend.
They're going to argue about this. This is really going to bring them to the head. Yeah. Okay. Mine sounds like actually derived from all 3. It's like, what do you mean we've got a basement? Somewhere along the line, an established base, you reveal that there's some hidden or otherwise obscured part of the base that characters know about that they suddenly get access to, and it could involve threats. It could involve a new ability. It might raise questions about, well, okay, what actually is this place, or what are we really doing? See everything from Supernatural to Buffy for kind of examples. It's very much a new season, new room in the base, so new sort of stuff in here that you could go with. So yeah, it's play with that a few different ways, but make them all of a sudden doubt that they know everything about the place that they call home, and slowly try and sort of reincorporate that understanding, do a little exploration, and sort of, is there a monster next door or in the basement, or what we clear we keep. If we empty it out of threats, we've got new access to new stuff, or we discover a new toy. It could be 3 nukes. Right. Anything else we want to say about this before we wrap up this episode?
Perhaps recommended some more obscure RPG stuff. Like we've recommended stuff like Brancolia and Strongholds and Followers for 5th Ed people. But are there any particular newer games that people we've mentioned? Blades in the Dark and the whole Forged in the Dark sub-series. So that has
it's got a pretty good. I mean, its base is a sort of an abstract, but the base and the hideout and layers aspect of that is kind of cool in terms of building out territories that you control. Necromunda has had a campaign system that allowed you to do something similar. You were able to fight over access to areas that would give you different roles and different kind of abilities to farm resources. Not a role-playing game as such, but kind of well worth looking towards if you've got more of a gangland style game where it's access to the dump, or it's access to the gambling dens, or something like control of street corners.
Forbidden Lands, the Swedish hex scrawler, has extensive kind of base building rules. And Road Trader, of course, has their shipbuilding rules. Con X has your base building rules. There's Mutant Zero has base building rules, I believe.
Yeah. For OSR stuff, people will always, there's some things. There's a whole bunch of OSR products that have this sort of emphasis. I always recommend looking at Kevin Crawford stuff because he has a couple of free versions. So there's the Worlds Without Number version, which is sort of faction, like what armies and armies or spies or businesses does our faction own, and then there's a more streamlined version for managing sort of your countryside factions. That's in the Godbound book. They're both available for free, which is why I recommend them. As for more direct base building stuff, there's some interest. You always look at Powered by the Apocalypse has things because they're sort of doing particular genres, and therefore their mechanics tend to be focused around emulated genres. One of the main ones I've seen is called Stone Top. I think it's just coming out of sort of beta in the next while, and it's very much about that sort of Iron Age fantasy where it's this tiny isolated village in the middle of the wilderness, and you're the heroes of that town. But hero in a town like that could be something similar as the priest or the lawyer, and all that stuff could be very useful. There's also Flying Circus, another one that comes to mind because it's about managing the company that runs all your aeroplanes, because you have all these rickety biplanes that could fall out of the sky at any moment. So you don't have to worry about the expenses of all the copious amounts of alcohol your pilots are drinking to alleviate their battlefield stress, which is a different system. You don't worry about that kind of money. You worry about the money to keep your planes flying. And not being turfed out of town for all of the things you do, but when you're drinking copious amounts of alcohol.
Okay, Xaosseed, I'm going to give you the last few recommendations, and then before you do that, just remember, folks, we have a Discord, which is our base of operations. You'll find a link in the description and show notes. So come and join us and tell us about your favorite base building escapades in your favorite systems. Xaosseed, give us your recommendations, and then, because you opened us, close us.
Yeah, so then 2, I would say, like continuing on the OSR vein, there's a one that's again on factions, Gathok's Vertical Slum. It's from a while ago, but it's got a cool how to make your gang. And then there's another interesting one that's a zine, so quite lightweight, but it's got all downtime activities, including building up your faction, building up your location, all that type of stuff. Downtime in Zion. Both of those are like super interesting. I'm using Downtime in Zion stapled into the Brancolonia campaign to handle a bunch of that type of stuff at the moment. Lots of fun, really. Yep. Both of those I would say to check out. And I'm sure there's other ones, but you can find us on the Discord to hear what we forgot to tell you just now.
Night Witches, I think, has this great adventure in the daytime, back to base at nighttime, or it could be it's the
other way around.
Yeah, but strong sort of base focus there. Xaosseed.
And on that note, this party's over.
Thank you for listening to the Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter. Or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license. But you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.